Hey, welcome back. Nerd Down on the Creek. We're going back to the whiteboard again. Last video, talked a little bit about the idea of practice, training, competition, right? The first two workouts of the week we're in right now, kind of more practice, a little bit of training, but mainly I would say like 50-50 practice and training. Heavy deadlifts, definitely training. And we kind of tried to limit how heavy you would go by saying a certain percentage, try to go, same weight all the way across. It's not working up to a 5 rep max, blah, 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 all that stuff. Well, today we have the Chief, and the Chief is a benchmark, and it is hard, and the intent of it is to go as hard as possible. So today is that once or twice a week competitive type of workout where you are going against yourself, you're going against a previous version, you're going against a coach directed intention or stimulus, and you're trying to push the boundaries of your physiological capacity. Also a little bit of mental capacity. Because why I say that is, so let's look at what we've got. So the Chief, as written, 5 rounds, 3 power cleans, 6 push-ups, 9 air squats, 3-minute rounds, 5 times, 1 minute rest between each of those rounds. As an athlete, the first thing you should see when you look at that is 1 minute rest. Why? 1 minute rest is so dangerously not enough because at first it feels like, okay, this isn't so bad. I got a little bit of rest. And then you realize, oh my God, I wish I didn't have the rest, because if I didn't have the rest, then I wouldn't have gone so hard because I would have known to pace it. But because I have that rest, I'm going to go really hard thinking I have rest. And I realize 1 minute's never enough. Why is 1 minute never enough? All right. So we've got 2 charts here. My first chart is, we've looked at this one before. This is our metabolic pathways on top of my power output. What I mean by that is, so in the first 10 seconds of a workout, I've got mainly my phosphogenic pathway and it's high power output. Then I move about 10 seconds to about a minute. I've got that glycolytic pathway, and that's gonna be a little bit, mainly anaerobic with a little bit of aerobic in there. And then once outside of about a minute, it becomes all aerobic work. But what makes this workout so dangerous is those power cleans, primarily a phosphogenic glycolytic movement, meaning it's a very high power and it's definitely less than 10 seconds. Then I transition into 6 push-ups, 9 air squats, a little bit more aerobic, meaning I can slow down their body weight and I'm just moving through them. There's a little bit of this power output required, but it's sort of like the CrossFitters version of the long, slow distance. But if we transpose that chart over top of my lactate threshold, what do I mean by that is, so as I work in this region, the more inefficiency at the cellular level of moving or changing one energy source into another energy source so that my body can use it, I get a lactic acid byproduct or remainder of that process. And the more I have of that, the less my cells can process it and off-gas it or use it or move it from my lungs till I expel it, or move it from there to my liver and then I move it out, whatever. I don't know how exactly that works, so don't ask me. I'm sure I could find it on Google. I'm sure you could too. Needless to say, what it feels like is your muscles are on fire and you can't move anymore. And instead of, this is where like, if you kept going because you have a little switch in your brain that makes you a little psycho and you can just turn it off and go, you either are going to pass out, you're going to shit your pants, I just swore, you're going to poop your pants, or you're going to throw up. That's what your body is doing. It's trying to expel that toxic lactic acid as it builds up. But we don't get there at first, right? We don't get there in the first round. We rest through that minute. And then we go into the second round. We're still feeling all right. We rest in that minute. Oops. Now I shoot up and I have tripped over my lactate threshold. And now I'm hanging out here. And then this is now our third round. I rest, and I am never going to rest long enough to fully recover to be able to stay below that lactate threshold. Now we're in our fourth round. And I've drawn this line here because it doesn't really matter, because at that point, it's all up here. Whether you decide to keep going or not going, physiologically, you could probably keep going. until you can't anymore. And that's, right? You see people hurt themselves. You see that like guy at the end of a long race kind of bonking and legs are wobbly and he can't finish. That's because they have exceeded their lactate threshold. So how do we combat this? You can't really change this. You can train it and you kind of move that power output. This is years. This is a couple months worth of work. And what I mean by that is this is where pacing comes in, where instead of letting myself in my second and third round blow up, and especially not blowing up in that first round where maybe my power output's even closer up to here, is I keep it here and I lower that and I stay. The longer I can stay below my lactate threshold, this is taking a lot of mental power not to make the pen move in the right place. The longer I can stay under this, the better chance I have of being able to stay consistent across my 5 rounds. So what does that look like as an athlete? Well, in Chief, it's rounds, right? If I come out and I get 7 rounds in that first 3 minutes, well done. But I turn around and I get 5 rounds the next 3 minutes, or 4 rounds, or maybe I go 8, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and then somehow I recover and I have a 6 at the end. I don't know anyone who did that. Versus if I were to just hold 6s across, by going too hard at the front end, you cost yourself 2 to 3 rounds. So this is where pacing matters, and you can use time, you can use output, you can use performance in the version of rounds, reps, whatever, as the guide, rather than having to wear a heart rate monitor or pay attention to a lot of other things. Just know, like kinesthetically, when I moved for 5 rounds, I felt like I had a lot of energy left. Well, that's gonna be the case because you're below that lactate threshold. But what you've set yourself up is to be able to recover and go again, recover and go again, recover and go again until you can't. Then the next time, know like, okay, well, I could have gone 6, 6, 6, 6, 5, or 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, instead of 7, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. That's training, folks. That's how we get better. Like I said, nerding out on the creek. This one's about competition, but even when we compete against ourselves and our previous version of ourselves or some nebulous time, or the person next to you, right? If it's healthy competition, you can also train and learn something about yourself as an athlete. Have fun. See you on the creek.